What's happening, traders? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to do an updated version of my strategy, or the one that I use the most. There is a couple that I use. I'm going to make a separate video on each of them, but this one is my supply and demand strategy with fair value gaps. Let's get into it. Alright guys, jumping into it. So, supply and demand strategy with fair value gaps. I'm going to run through what that means, and then we're going to look for examples on the chart, but we're going to do it slightly different. I'm not just going to go, I haven't found any yet, although I can see a few on the screen right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the replay tool. We're going to go back in time, and then we're going to sort of trade in a simulation manner through and try and find sort of live setups and in quotations. As we go, so I'm kind of trading in a simulated form rather than just kind of just showing you ones I've already found. So what is supply and demand, and what are fair value gaps? Let's get into it. Okay, so in any market there is supply and there is demand. Okay, so from here, okay, we have a demand zone. This is push price up. So if price is coming from an area and has strong buying pressure, this is a demand zone. And then if we have a strong area like this with a lot of selling pressure, quickly there is a supply zone. Now a fair value gap is this thing right here. So you can see the top of this, let me zoom right in for you, the top of this blue candle. Okay, so we're looking at this big candle here, but the top of this blue candle to the bottom of this blue candle, there is just one candle, right? And it's this big white bullish candle, and that is a fair value gap. So the fair value gap, if we were to draw it in, would be from the bottom of that candle to the top of this candle. That is a fair value gap. Okay, they can be all sizes. There's plenty about, as you can see. There's one right here, like so. There's one right, there's a very small one right here, and there is another one up here. There's another one here. There's another one here. So on and so on. And basically what a fair value gap is, it's imbalance in the market. So in this area there is only selling orders, okay, and prices move quickly through that area with just sellers. So mostly just sellers, majority just sellers. So what we're going to look for is we're going to look for a supply or demand zone, okay, where we can spot high buying or selling pressure, and then within the zone, and I'll show you how we're going to draw them out in a minute, we're going to look for fair value gaps. Now, some people look for fair value gaps before the zone, all right, and then that they use that as their sort of filler. But I found that if you actually find fair value gaps in the zone, price is usually going to take out those gaps before it has the reversal, okay? And sometimes it can reverse as soon as it taps into a supply or demand zone, and it will do a short sort of sell off or buy off, if you will, quickly, but then it will sort of reverse, come into the zone a little bit deeper, take out the fair value gaps, and then continue the run of the move. So what we're going to do is I'm going to use the replay tool. Now for this, I like to use these lines here. Okay, they basically just mark out where midnight is in the UK, because I am in the UK. In fact, this one says midnight, 1 o'clock, 1 a.m., which is a bit weird, but it's about the same thing. It just gives me a good idea. So what we're going to do is we're going to scroll up here so I can't see what's going on. We're going to do this on the 5-minute chart because it's the chart I like to use the most. And we're going to click this replay tool, which allows me to cut time. Okay, so we're just going to zoom back now. I have no idea where we're going to go. I'm randomly doing this. And we're going to look what we find. Okay, that's Friday the 3rd of March. Let's go to a Monday so we can run through a whole week. Okay, so that's the 20th of February right there. So we're going to go from around 6 a.m. because that's when I wake up. And that's when I start looking at the charts. So now we can come down. Blimey, there we go. Right, now we can come down and we can look at the chart, right? And what we're going to look for is supply and demand zones and then setups within there. So first things first, we look to see if we've got any on the screen currently. And we have a demand zone here. Okay, so you can see from this area, from this big blue candle, we had strong buying pressure to the upside and we broke structure to the left. Okay, and I actually have some rules which I'm going to try and find. Have I got them here? Or are they on the other screen? I don't have them here. Right, I will put these in. Give me a second. Okay, so we've got the rules up. You can see here. So we've got find a supply and demand zone with a fair value gap within. We'll look for the fair value gaps in a second. Look for a break of structure. So we've got a break of structure here. wait for price to fill the zone. So we're going to wait for price to come into the zone, fill the gaps, and then we're going to look for an entry on a break of a recent candle high or low. Okay, and that's basically going to give us our entry. There's our 4 rules that we're looking for. So what we have though is a demand zone at quite a high point in the move. Okay, now what we normally like to see is if we're quite high up in the move, we want to look for supply, and if we're quite low in the move, we want to look for demand. So we're going to see how price reacts off this area, but before we do that, we're going to zoom right into the 1 minute chart and look for fair value gaps in the zone. So I can see that we have one here, one here, one there, and a little bit of one left over down here. Okay, so what we're going to do now is go back to the 5 minute chart. We're going to play through time and wait to see if we can come down to the zone and fill out the gaps and get our entry signal. Okay, so we're in the zone. We haven't taken out that. Okay, we've just taken out that last one now. Alright, so this area is still valid because this candle pushed down out of the zone but then closed back in the zone. So this candle is now closed. We're going to see what the next one does, but what we're going to be looking for is price to break this high here. Okay, so we want the next candle to break above this high. It doesn't have to close above the high. I mean, it will because we're on the replay mode. So it may that it closes up here, but in real life, in live trading, if this next candle goes above this high, then I would enter the trade. Okay, so we're going to see what the next candle does. Wow. So what we would have done here is price would have broken this candle's high, so we would have entered the market with either a buy stop or manually, and we would have gone for a 1-to-1 trade for our first TP. Okay, so first TP would be here. And then we could go for a 1-to-2 for a second TP, or we could potentially see if price will like to come up to here. So let's see how this plays out. There we go. So that's a really nice example of the strategy. Okay, so we've got a 5 minute demand zone with strong buying pressure, breaking structure to the left. Price came back into the zone. We eventually took out all the fair value gaps in the zone. We got a break of our candle high, and we entered the market here with a stop loss just below the zone, maybe a pip or two below the candle or the zone, depending on which is further down. And as you can see, price has just skyrocketed. We've smashed through our first TP and actually almost hit our got a 1-to-2 almost immediately on a 5 minute candle there. And there we go. So that's a really good example. I'm going to go through now. We're going to sort of see if we can find a supply zone, and if we do, I'll show you that one, and then that would be the video. It's going to be short and sweet. I don't want to talk too much about this. So what have we got going on now? Let's just get rid of this for a moment, just to clean things up. So we actually have a supply zone now. So we created this demand zone, price pushed up, okay, and then we have this area now, which is a supply zone. So from here to here, that's probably where I would draw it. Okay, and you can see that this area supplied the market quite heavily, and we broke some structure to the left. And then we're going to look for our fair value gaps. So we're going to go down to lower time frame. We have got one here. Okay, there's one below, but that's fine. We were just interested in the ones in the zone, and one little one there. Now, if price comes up here and takes out these gaps, we'll be looking for sales. Price could not come up here at this time. It might come up here later on in a day or two. So we're just going to see how price works and see what we get. Okay, so we had a pretty big push down, and what has been created is another supply zone, right? So we've had this lower low, new higher low, and then we've made a new lower low from this area with a sharp bearish movement. So this has also now become a supply zone. So we're going to go down to the 1 minute chart and look for our fair value gaps. We've got one there, and then we've got our extreme one right here. So we're going to go back to the 5 minute, and then we're going to see if we can get a fill of our gaps. Now we just tapped into this one here. Okay, for me that's not a sell. For some people that might be, but haven't got it. We just cleared this one. All right. Now potentially you could have entered a sell here, but let's go for a 1-to-1 here. I wouldn't have taken this one because I'm still waiting for this one up here to get taken out. Okay, and also we've still got this one here. So let's see what happens. Okay, that could have been a good trade, all right, but it doesn't quite follow the rules, so we're going to see if we can still take out that other one up the top there. It's currently about 2 o'clock. You see, price wants to come up and find it. We're just tapped in. Boom. Right, so you can see, look at that, the accuracy of there. So if we go back to the 1 minute, you got that fair value gap there. Look what price did. It literally took it out precisely. Okay, so of course what we would have done is, now that we got that situation, we would have, our stop loss would be here. We're going to go for our 1-to-1 to start, which we almost got immediately. Okay, so we're going to go da-da, TP1, and then TP2 is going to be a 1-to-2 on this one, as it's a bit later in the day. This is, well, it's not later in the day, it's just at New York Open, okay, a New York Stock Exchange Open. So let's see how it goes. And bang. So we got our first TP pretty quickly. We then came back up. To be honest, this one probably would have been a break even for us, because we would have got our first TP. Price came up and hit TP. Hit break even, because we would have moved our stop to break even down here. But price did eventually push down as well. So that could have been 2 good trades there. This is not a bad trade because of the price action candle here with this big wick, but I would have waited for this to be taken out before I took the trade, and either way we would have won about the same amount, 7.9 pips, and this would have been about 6 pips. So there we go. There's a nice supply zone. So I'm actually going to go through one more. We're going to go to the next day. I'm going to let this play on, and we'll see what we can find on the Tuesday. Maybe we'll look for 1 or 2 more examples, and then we'll move on. Okay, so we're going to get to around 6 o'clock in a second. Alright, so about there. Look at that, perfect. So, what have we got going on? We've got a good example just here. We wouldn't have got this one because we would have been asleep at this time. It's 2 AM, so this is in the evening. But we have another supply zone here. So I'm going to get rid of some of this just to clean things up. Okay, we know what happened over here. So we had a supply zone here, price pushed down, breaking structure to the left. Now, of course, some people may trade this session. It doesn't. I don't trade it personally, but let's see if we took out our fair value gaps. Look at that, we did. So we've got a 1 just here, and then we have a minute one right here. From the bottom of this candle to the top of that other one, there is a little one there. And what did price do? Came up to take that out almost perfectly. Oh. Okay, and then if we were trading this time, or if someone was trading this time, you could take a break at the candle low. Stop loss could be either just above the high here or above the zone. Let's go for above the zone. Went for our 1-to-1. That would have been a really nice 8.6 pips on GBP USD. Okay, and if you had stop loss, let's say we went for a first TP. Let's see how this ends up. So first TP is there. Oh. And let's say we're going for a 1-to-2 or down to, yeah, 1-to-2 is literally just below the low there. We haven't been stopped out, or maybe would have been stopped out for break even with the spreads, but let's see how it goes anyway. There we go, break even there. And boom, actually price shoots down. So a nice trade there if you're going for your 1-to-1s. You know, the thing is with this is it's a high probability setup, right? You've got loads of things lining up, you're following rules, and you know, you only need 1 or 2 of these a day and you're going to be very happy. And if you can get a runner, you know, at this point you could say take 80%, you could even bring stop loss to 50%, right, and just give it a little bit of breathing room, or 2 or 3 pips, because that 20% isn't going to eat into the whole of the profits of the 80% you've taken out here. So then price could literally, as you can see here, we had a little tip and then price comes down. So it depends what you want to do. I usually just bring it to break even because I'm usually happy with what I get from here, because I don't want to be in the market for too long stressing. But not a bad, look, we're 4 for 4 there. This one I wouldn't have taken, but still worked out. So we're 3 for 3. We've got a nice demand zone, nice supply, a nice supply. And let's look for one more demand. Let's see. Now you can always look quite far to the left as well. We've got an area here which could work. Okay, and we've also got one down here that could work. But we're going to just play through. If I don't see anything for the rest of this day, then I'm probably going to leave the video there. Okay, alright, so that would have been a good example of the demand zone. and maybe we didn't take the trade there. I wasn't focusing enough. But let's go to the left. Let's see if we got our fair value gaps filled. So we got a fair value gap there on the 1 minute inside the zone, like so. Let's see if price did fill the whole zone, because I only like to take trades if it fills the whole zone. If it just goes halfway through, that's not for me. Yeah, look at that. Filled the whole zone. Price pushed up. We go to the 5 minute chart. We took out that fair value gap. If you'd found that by now, you know, stop just below the wick, because that's a nice. Normally when there's a big wick, I just do it below the wick, and then we go for a 1-to-1. Even if we went for a 1-to-2, you know, it would have worked out really nicely. So that's basically it. It's pretty simple. There's no indicators, there's no anything like that. It's just pure price action, just reading charts, following these 4 rules, which we go through again. Find supply and demand zone with a fair value gap within. Okay, found loads of examples with that happening. Look for breaker structure. Okay, so for example, this, we didn't go through that one, but this zone broke this structure, so that is an important zone. Okay, this one broke this structure. This one here broke this high structure. What happened here? This one broke this structure, and this one broke this structure, and actually major structure to the left here as well. So looking for that. Then we wait for the price to fill the zone and the gaps, which we've done. And then enter on a break of a candle high. So as soon as we got a break of a candle high after filling all the gaps, we enter the market. Same as here, same as here, same as here, and here. And that's it. It's that simple. It's yeah, that simple. Some people, I've seen lots of people trade similar to this. I've just edited it a little bit, where I look for the gaps in the zone to be filled. You know, some people look for gaps just before the zone. I go down to the 1 minute chart and I want to see everything filled, because then for me that means that price has done what it needs to do in the zone. There's nothing else of interest in there, and then if we do get that break of the candle low or high, then it's likely, or more likely that we're going to go down, because nothing's certain in trading, as I'm sure you know. And also what I found is, when I used to trade just the 5 minute, not looking at the 1 minute fair value gaps, sometimes as soon as we come into the zone and we get a break of a candle low, price would maybe push down to profit a little bit, then it would come all the way up, and at this point, you know, I'm sweating because I'm like, oh god, we're just going to get broken out. It would take out all the gaps and then would come down and go into profit. Because that's fine, I still won the trade, but for half the trade I was sweating because I was in drawdown, right? So I just want to wait for everything in the zone to be taken out, and then price can do its thing. So hopefully that was helpful. That is my main strategy, the one I use and look for mostly every single day. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. So if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. If you've got any video ideas, please comment below. This is a video that's been requested by someone specifically, so shout out to you, and I hope you enjoy it. I have got 2 more strategies, and there's one that I've been working on the last couple of weeks with lots of back testing, which I can't wait to show you. It's quite interesting, and it's again very simple, no indicators. Well, there's one indicator. It's more of a signal. Not signal, that's the wrong word. It just kind of shows me a time of the day, basically, a bit like this one. Doesn't show me any sort of price data, it just shows me a time period. So yeah, hope you enjoyed. I'm rambling on now, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace. Happy trading.